It's always struck me intuitively that as people were moving around and moving south after the last glaciation, that the recolonization of new rivers by salmon may have been a sign to people that this is a good place to settle. The relationship between salmon and people during those 10,000 years has been extraordinarily intense.
Looking for a place with water, and we certainly didn't think we could afford any kind of waterfront property, and we got lost on the way to the dump. And saw the for sale sign and made him stop, and I snuck up the church property next door and peeked over the fence and saw this pond, and that was it. I think the whole point to our property here is we're constantly learning. There's always something new, and that's the exciting part, is that it's always something new every day on the creek.
In the year 2000, Tim and Patty Crawford petitioned Shoreline to stop work on this house, which they believed encroached upon Thornton Creek's legally protected salmon buffer.
There is a law in the city of Shoreline that you have 100-foot buffer, that you can't, when you have a stream on a site and there's salmon in that stream, you cannot build within 100 feet of that stream. No build buffer.
The city of Shoreline found in the Crawfords' favor and stopped work on the house.
And they said in their letter of why they stopped the work on that little house was the Crawfords may have discovered an unmapped sensitive area, meaning Thornton Creek.
Just months after the city of Shoreline shut this project down, a giant new development was unveiled to be built just downstream of here, almost all of it within Thornton Creek's legally protected buffer.
This was a bad project, but when we saw the plans for Aegis, it was a horrible project.
Aegis, to put it simply, was covering an enormous amount of that buffer area with concrete, or the proposal was to do so. And if you want to build within that buffer area, and this is sprawling within the buffer area, this isn't just a little bit of an intrusion, you have to get an exemption from the code, essentially. You have to say, can I be exempt because I have a special situation, and it's called a variance.
Good morning, Aegis Assisted Living.
Aegis is an assisted living company from California, and they're expanding into Nevada and Washington. And they have one facility built now in Kirkland on Totem Lake, and this was their second one that they had planned for Washington.
So what happened is Aegis Assisted Living received a variance from the city. The city said, go ahead and build within the buffers. Patty and Tim Crawford appealed that decision to the hearing examiner. Different attorney was representing them at the hearing. Different attorney did the trial, presented the witnesses, and then the hearing examiner ruled against them. And then I came in at that point and took it to Superior Court, to King County Court. And at that stage, I was able to tell them, you have a case. I mean, it's worth pursuing, definitely.
We're here this afternoon in the matter of Crawford versus the City of Shoreline, Aegis Assisted Living.
Well, the most important thing for any stream system is really protecting the existing riparian buffer that you've got.
When we realized that this was such a significant fishery and that people were granting permits on the stream banks, we thought, oh, geez, our city council is going to love to hear there's fish here.
We were naive enough to think they'd be excited about this.
And it was threatening.
It is
it is extraordinarily difficult for anyone to run and win a local government race without the active support of the development industry. That's the way it is all over the country. So as a consequence, your planning commissions are appointed and your staff are hired by elected bodies that are virtually dominated by the development industry and their candidates. That's the fundamental problem we've got.
One year we spent $103,000. 1 year, because my city has refused to follow the law. Yes, I'm upset. This is an environmental tragedy.
The decision from the hearing examiner had been issued in October of 2000. Aegis was building all this time. Hearing April 2001, Judge Ehrlich says, I'm probably going to reverse. This was probably not approved properly. But he said, I have to think about it. So in the time that he was thinking about it, it wasn't actually officially stated. Aegis continued and actually started pouring concrete foundations.
She asked for an oral ruling. And the day before the oral ruling was the day that I obstructed and slowed the concrete trucks in the church parking lot.
The judge eventually ruled much later and then stopped, basically issued from the bench, learning that they had started pouring concrete, issued an immediate stop work order.
What you have here is a situation where effectively the city has repeatedly lowered the bar so that this developer can go in and get its project through. You also have a developer who basically, it seems to me, has thumbed his nose both at the law and at the court, and has proceeded ahead, I guess under the hope or belief that if it gets its foot in the ground, nobody's going to force it to leave. I would say that it often is the case that that strategy succeeds.
In 2002, with the project officially halted by Judge Ehrlich's stop work order, Shoreline allowed Aegis to split the development into two sections. Shoreline amended the permits by redefining a stretch of the creek as a drainage ditch. Now sanctioned by the dubious permits, Aegis broke ground on the northern site, and Tim and Patty Crawford immediately filed suit for another stop work motion in Superior Court.
What the city did was they basically issued Aegis a building permit saying go ahead and build, and didn't give any notice to the public, didn't have any public comment period, which is required.
The decisions which are under review by this court are the issuance of the amended building permit by the city of Shoreline for the Aegis project on the north building site.
To get a judge to say to someone who's developing, you have to stop, you have to prove that you're probably going to win in the end.
Although Judge Ehrlich agreed to grant the Crawfords stop work motion, the Crawfords cannot afford the $50,000 required to bond the decision. Against warnings from the judge that they could lose their entire investment, Aegis continued to build.
So Shoreline's answer to all of this has been to just go change the rules.
The issue really is, as the chairman mentioned, really has to do with a conflict in land values. What we have is private property values at odds with environmental values.
This is not about property rights versus the environment. I'm here as a citizen. Children. Home. Community.
Neighborhood.
There's 1,000 reasons why salmon are endangered, and a very large percentage of them have to do with how humans act and how our particular style of economic development has worked for the last 150 years. I get down to the root of the American values of individualism and private property. When individualism as a value is a wonderful American value, but it tends to translate into I should be able to do whatever I please with this land. So people's consciousness tends to get extended as far as their property lines.
I think one of the fundamental things that as we're looking at growth management and increasing populations that maybe we decide, and this almost sounds like heresy, but do we try and save every single creek that at one point in time had salmon in?
This is the first time that an endangered species, or there's been a threatened species that's in an urban area. I mean, when we're talking about the Chinook, that was kind of a big deal because we're talking about in a city.
Well, let me just talk about the experience that I had when I saw the Chinook salmon in Thornton Creek the first time. Now, me, the so-called expert, is a fishery biologist with a master's degree, looking down at that salmon and saying, all of the background, all of the education I've had says that you're not supposed to be here. This is what we biologists would call a hammered creek. Yet the salmon are still coming back. And I thought, well, the salmon don't vote. So it's up to me, with my fishery biologist background, to go out and tell others that the salmon are here and we need to protect them.
Basically, I think it's the canary in the coal mine, and people should recognize that if we're going to treat our environment this way, basically that's how we're treating ourselves.
It's my intuition that if we allow salmon to disappear, civilization itself is that much closer to the edge.
When the variance for Aegis was playing out and we had the stay of work and things weren't looking good, they knew they had to go for a different option. So there was a critical area special use permit that was created in the new development code that wasn't available when they first started with their first application, but was available then after we had taken the variance to court.
At the critical areas hearing, several citizens, including the Crawfords, revealed that they had been sued for slander and conspiracy for criticizing Aegis. Nonetheless, the hearing examiner ruled that the project, a for-profit venture, was a public benefit and issued the permit. This would allow Aegis to build on the south building site, the site Judge Ehrlich had already voided the permits on. While the fate of the north building awaited summary decision in Superior Court, Tim and Patty Crawford had a number of subsidiary issues that still needed to be resolved.
We have been told in writing by our city attorney that the 100-foot buffers would be applied on our property.
I have it in writing. He said vested rights in the city of Shoreline that do not comply with current city code are considered a privilege being granted by the city of Shoreline and may be extinguished in the future. And that was in relation to our house. So they are not only, they're threatening our vested rights. They're going beyond us asking someone to do something out of the ordinary. They're going after our vested rights.
We're not asking for a building permit here. They attacked us directly. They've attacked our, what is it, our Third Amendment rights? I've got folks I fought with in Vietnam that just flip right over in their coffins when these boys say to me, Mr. Crawford, we're going to take that into your house, we're going to tear it up. Because that 50-year-old right you have, we've decided we don't like you, we're taking that away from you. My Constitution, my Bill of Rights, tells me that my home is my castle, that my vested rights mean something. But my city, their property.
They're going to tear the pond out.
Yeah. And the end of our house that flows beneath, where the pond blows beneath our house.
And my chickens. I think that's what pissed me off the bear touch my chickens.
It's going to come out good. The building's going to have to come out of the buffer. And these people are going to have to be responsible for what they've done. Now, if we can just hold out financially
We're going to
until
have
the end
Mickey
of this road,
Rooney in our neighborhood.
I think we can email Mickey Rooney. I don't think Mickey Rooney. I remember our gang comedy where I saw Mickey Rooney sitting there fishing.
We've had over 600 people come through the doors in the last 60 minutes, so I think that's a record.
There is still a case in Superior Court pending, and I find it very odd in our democratic system that they're having an opening and selling rooms in a building that is not completely permitted, and that's why I'm here today. I am an environmental biologist, and this is one of the worst floutings of the environmental regulations I've seen since I've been in this business, and that's since 1986.
Holding hands in the movie show, when all the lights glow, may not be new, but I like it. How about you? Here's a pretty bum.
Now we hope the creek gets spoken for today. It's been long overdue.
The court will synopsize its decision for the benefit of the council. 1, petitioners Crawford have standing. 2, the analysis allowing for a reduced buffer zone between the northern channel and the north building on the Aegis site, which was permitted under a variance, was substantially changed when the north channel was recharacterized as a non-Type 2 drainage ditch. This substantial change mandated a new threshold determination under SEPA at minimum on that issue, allowing for public notice and comment.
The judge's decision vindicates the neighbors, and it's a real testament to them to the Crawfords and to the whole community that have fought this fight, because the laws in this state are set up to protect the landowners and protect the municipalities who are issuing the permits. And it's a very steep road. It's very burdensome. It's very expensive. It's very trying. And it's a real credit and testament to people like the Crawfords who are willing to fight that fight.
While the Superior Court summary decision affirmed nearly all of the Crawfords' charges and voided Aegis's building permit, Judge John Ehrlich refused to delay occupancy of the north building. The building is currently occupied by an unknown number of elderly persons. 7 months removed from the summary decision, the remand hearing for unresolved issues regarding the Aegis project has yet to be scheduled by the Shoreline Hearing Examiner. On September 28, 2003, without having officially delivered site plans to the Shoreline Planning Department, Aegis invited Mickey Rooney back to break ground on the south building site.
Life is hard when you have to work for scoundrels, Mickey. Good luck. Buddy, I'll sign you a check. If you got to come out and work for people who want to kill salmon, I'll hire you. This is terrible. They're cheating you. They're lying to you if they're telling you they're not hurting our environment, Mickey. These are not truthful people. They're liars.
I think we feel like we were led to this house to buy this piece of property by something larger than us. We'd love to be going to Las Vegas and Disneyland and all these places, all the mecca that everybody seems to want to travel to, that we've never seen. You know, we read about the country and then don't get to see it, but that is a little sacrifice that we can make to preserve what we get to enjoy on a daily basis. I mean, we overall feel very blessed to be in this situation.
Well, it's always seemed to me likely that the only power on earth that's strong enough to counter those global market influences is by mobilizing the innate love of people for nature and places. Places as they are a manifestation, an expression of the nature of the planet.
All of our society benefits by having whistleblowers. All of our society benefits by people that try to defend the truth and people that try to defend fairness. And if there are no sanctions for those that lie, if there are no sanctions for those that abuse the law, then our society is in trouble.
Major funding for Natural Heroes is provided by General Hydroponics, bringing nature and technology together to feed a hungry world while protecting soil and water resources. KRCB, Public Television for San Francisco's North Bay, building community for global change. Green Treks Network, telling stories that change the world. For more information about Natural Heroes, to purchase videos, or to submit your film, visit our website at naturalheroestv.org or call 1-800-287-2722.